UCSF Transportation Webinar, Two Wheels, One UCSF, Getting Around by Bike.
Thank you all for joining today for Two Wheels, One UCSF, Getting Around by Bike, another webinar presented by the Strategic Planning Unit. Thank you all for joining. Just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. Again, we're going to have a nice educational webinar about biking and getting to UCSF via public transit or getting between UCSF and transit hubs. If you have any questions today, you can pop those in the Q&A option for the Zoom, and then we will answer them on the back end or bring them up with the presentation. We're going to share slides after the presentation. And I also want to say that we have a special guest today. So while we are hosting it, the webinar will be led by our great partners at the SF Bike Coalition, San Francisco Bike Coalition, and I will be handing that off to them shortly as they're here to really dive deep as our subject matter experts in talking about bike education. So I am going to stop my share, and I'm going to introduce you to Kamukin Maxwell from the SF Bike Coalition, who will kick us off with the substantive part of our webinar. Hello.
Awesome. Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having us. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Give me 1 second. All right. Is that showing up okay? Cool. All right, so we'll get going here. Like Tyler said, my name is Kamukin Maxwell. I work for the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition. We're going to talk about kind of an introduction and overview to biking and commuting in San Francisco. If you're a panelist and you're able to mute yourself, please try to stay muted for the duration of this. Tyler or anyone else, if there's questions and you want to pop up and share them, please do. I'll go ahead and jump into it because we got a lot of great information to cover. So welcome, thanks for joining. Here's what we'll be covering today. We'll talk a little bit about choosing a bike for getting around the city, both for commuting and for fun. We'll talk about how to prep yourself and your bike for riding. We'll share some tips on locking, how to keep your bike safe. We'll go over some pretty important rights and rules of the road. And then we'll dive into how to choose your route. And then we'll end with talking a little bit about multimodal commuting. So trying to give you all a really good overview of how to get around the city without having to rely on an automobile, worry about parking, paying for parking, all that stuff. So jumping into it. The first step, if you are wanting to be a bike commuter or just kind of get into exploring by bike, if you're looking at buying a bicycle, choosing a bicycle, there's a few questions to ask yourself to help you figure out what bike is going to suit your needs. I'll preface this by saying there's all kinds of bikes out there. They do all kinds of things. The best bike is the one you have with you. That's a great place to start. But if you are looking at acquiring a bike, some questions to ask yourself. What kind of riding do you plan to do? Are you going to be commuting? Is that your main thing? Do you maybe want to get into road riding, mountain biking, bike camping? Be honest and real with yourself about where you hope your bike can take you and what it can do, because that will help you when you're bike shopping really hone in on the right kind of category of bike, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Another important question, and I know this from my own experience as an undergrad and graduate student, how much do you want to spend? You can spend as little as, for a used bike, maybe 100 to 400 bucks. New bikes, you can spend anywhere from, 600, 700 all the way up to 10, 15,000 if you're looking at advanced bikes or e-bikes, all kinds of things. So be real with yourself and your finances and budgeting. How much do you want to spend? Keep in mind that similar to a car, bicycles require a certain amount of upkeep. So it's not just the bicycle purchase up front. There's accessories, which we'll talk about. and there's the ongoing upkeep of getting it tuned up, getting repairs done, that kind of thing. Another pretty important thing to think about is where you're going to store it. Does your dorm room or apartment have room for it? If you're in a group house, where can you store it? Try to figure that out so that when you come home with your new bike, you're not trying to figure that out at the last second. And then just thinking about your commute route. We live in San Francisco. It's a pretty hilly city. So think about if you're going to have to commute up and over hills, if you want to ride off pavement, other kinds of terrain. All of these questions will help you really start filling in your head the picture of what a good bike would be for your fit and your needs. Having worked in bike shops for a long time, just like you shop around for bikes, shop around for bike shops. The place you buy the bike isn't necessarily the place you have to bring it to get it serviced. So try to find a local shop, or find a shop that you like the energy, the vibes, you like the people there who work there, because having a local bike shop with people that you know and trust is really important. So continuing with choosing a bike, this is just kind of a broad overview of different types of bikes that are available. We have a folding bike on the left, top left here. We'll just go around the circle going clockwise. A folding bike. We have what you can call a family or a cargo bike, which is a whole genre of its own. There's a hybrid, which a hybrid is just kind of a bike that isn't full on pavement, isn't full on off-road, can do a bit of both. Top right here, we have a mountain bike, which is really made for going off-road, exploring, riding trails, that kind of thing. And then down here, bottom left, we have kind of your classic road bike, designed for racing and for getting out, going on long rides, getting exercise. Recumbents are a different kind of bike that's fun. Some college students like the simplicity of a track bike or a fixed gear or a single speed, less upkeep to think about and worry about. And then there's all kinds of e-bikes these days. So there's all kinds of bikes. Again, asking yourself those questions of what is going to suit your needs is going to help you hone in on the right kind of category. And then from there, when you're at bike shops, you can say, I'm thinking about a hybrid, or I'm thinking about a mountain bike, but I also want to commute, that kind of thing. So moving on, once you get a bike, fitting yourself to the bike is another really important step. It's going to help keep you comfortable, reduce any risk of injury. So a couple things to think about. Number one is the standover height. Ideally, most bike shops will be able to help fit you to the bike, help you pick the right size. Once you have the right size bike, then we can adjust other things to make it fit you well. If you're looking at buying a bike used, maybe spend some time on good old Google or YouTube University. Educate yourself a little bit about, given your height and your proportions, what size bike you might need if you're going to go and look for used bikes. The standover height is something you can't adjust yourself. It's based on the frame, so just make sure you can stand over the bike comfortably and you have a couple inches between yourself and the frame when you're standing over the bike. Once you have a bike and you pick the right size, you can adjust the fit. The number one thing to think about is your saddle height. We'll talk more in a second about ideal saddle height, but the up and down vertical adjustment and the fore and aft horizontal adjustment are two really important things to familiarize yourself with. And then the next thing is going to be your reach to the handlebar. So how far you're reaching to the controls, and then the handlebar's relation to your saddle. So we can see in this slide, the handlebars have what's called a negative relationship to the saddle, or they have drop. Other bikes, the handlebars are going to be parallel or might even be above the seat. And this all really influences your riding position. Are you more upright for comfort and for enjoying the sights? Are you more aggressive for getting a workout? Things to keep in mind when you're shopping for a bike. And then, like I was saying, saddle height is really adjustable and important. We see here 3 different saddle positions. 2 of them are wrong, 1 of them is right. It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Bears. You don't want it too low. So this one here on the left, you can see this person's leg has too much bend. So this saddle is too low. We see next to it, this person's seat is too high. So with the seat where it is, their leg is almost straight, and that's not really ideal for comfort or for efficiency on the bike. What we're looking for is the middle ground between these 2 extremes. You want your seat high enough that you're getting really good engagement with the pedals. That'll help you with getting up the hills, not wasting a lot of energy. It's also going to help keep you comfortable. So not too high, not too low. To adjust your seat, what we want to do is there's what's called your seat post. So looking at this image on your left, there's the silver part, which is the seat post itself, which holds your seat. There's the silver clamp that this hand is adjusting. Below it, we see the kind of light greenish blue aqua color. That's the frame. So your saddle is on a post that goes into the frame, and that allows it to have the vertical adjustment up and down. Some bikes have what's called a quick release style clamp. So it's a lever that opens and allows the seat height to change. Others might have a bolt-on style clamp where you'll actually need a tool to be able to loosen it, to adjust your saddle height, and then retighten it. If you have questions, go to your local bike shop, whichever bike shop you find that you really want to go to. They should be ready and willing, and make things like this accessible, and they will want to help you. So if you're unsure, visit your local bike shop. Moving on, couple must-haves when you're riding a bike in general, but especially riding in a city and commuting. Number one is a helmet. Helmets are replaceable, crashes do happen, heads are not replaceable. So having a good helmet is important. We'll talk more about all of these things in a moment. So helmet, really important. Lights are good, not just at night or in dark conditions, but especially riding in a city with all kinds of other road users that we're sharing the road with. Being able to be visible and be seen is really important. And last but not least, having a lock or multiple locks to secure your bike if you're going to be leaving it somewhere in the public view for an extended period of time, really important. We'll talk more about locks, but I'll also say this: no lock is really theft-proof. I will say the more locks you have, the more you are dissuading a potential thief from stealing your bike. So consider investing in multiple locks. Going back to helmets, it's important, just like with your bicycle, helmets need to fit in a proper way. So we see here on the left, this helmet is too high, the straps are too loose. There's kind of a two-finger rule for all of this. You want to have two fingers that you can put above your eyebrow and the helmet. So you see here on the right, the gap between the eyebrow and the helmet is a lot closer. That's going to protect your frontal lobe and your forehead. And then you don't want the strap too loose, obviously not too tight that you're feeling like you're being choked, not so loose that the helmet can slide off your head. So again, you can have two fingers below your helmet. Bottom left here, we see the back of the helmet. It's not a Cyclops, but the back of the helmet. Most helmets are going to have a adjustment dial on the back that's going to help tighten or loosen the helmet retention system, which literally is a strap that goes around your head that you can tighten and loosen. And last but not least, bottom right here, you want the helmet centered on your head, not off to one side or the other. And then we see again kind of that two-finger or 2-inch gap between your eyebrows and the bottom of the helmet. So spend some time when you get a helmet, stand in front of that bathroom mirror, wherever you have a mirror, spend some time adjusting it so that you can ensure that the helmet is going to fit right and do its job in the event that you need it to. Talking about lights, California Vehicle Code says that you're legally required in dusk and nighttime situations to have minimum a front white light and a rear red reflector. We really recommend having more, like the more lights, the better. So a front white light is a great idea. A rear red reflector is good, but having a rear red light is even more important. There's also reflectors you can put on the pedals, reflectors on the tires or the wheels. And other ways to be seen. We can see here in this photo, the cyclist in the front, they have on a bright helmet, they have on light clothing. You can even see they have a high visibility bag on the back, whereas the rider behind them is wearing a lot of darker clothes, darker helmet, and you can really see the difference in how quickly your eye sees one or the other. So making your bike visible is really important. Making yourself visible is also really important. And then continuing with preparing to ride, locks, different kinds of locks you can get. This is called a U-lock. On the top left here, a U-lock is hardened steel, goes around the bike, the frame, sometimes the wheel. Another style is a folding lock. There's also locking skewers. You can see here on the right. These skewers go through your wheel, make sure it can't be easily removed. And then you can add accessory cables or chains. So the more locks, the better. We'll go over real quick a couple tips on how to lock a bike. Here's one where you would remove your front wheel. You can see here this bike doesn't have a front wheel, and you lock it to the back wheel. Make sure your U-lock goes through the frame and the bike rack itself. That's one way to do it. Another way is with a U-lock, and if you have locking skewers, you don't need to worry about removing the wheel and the front wheel and locking it to the back. Both of your wheels with those hub locks or wheel locks, as they're also called, are safely secured on the bike. So you can just lock the frame And then you can also add multiple accessories. So like in this instance, we see a U-lock with a cable, and the U-lock is going through the back wheel and the frame and the front wheel. So trying to secure the bike on as many different points as possible. If I went over these slides really quickly and you get a lock and you're like, man, I forget what he said, go on to YouTube University, go on to Google. There's so many resources for how to lock your bike with lots of great videos. So if you're ever in doubt, just educate yourself. A couple tips with locking here. Try to lock somewhere with frequent traffic that goes by, pedestrian traffic. If you can lock on a busy sidewalk versus, over in an alley maybe, choosing somewhere where the bike is visible and people are crossing in front of it, going near it, will help people feel less inclined to try to steal it. Make sure you lock to a bike rack or other immovable object. And even with a bike rack, I recommend just check it, make sure it's actually stable. I was going to lock to a rack one time on Market, and I just checked the rack, and someone had actually loosened all the bolts on the bottom, and the rack had been picked up. So just double check, make sure what you're going to lock it to is actually stable and immovable. Don't lock to a tree. We see here in the bottom, someone had locked to this tree, and a bike thief, all they had to do was just break off the branches and lift the bike up and off the tree. Anything easily removable, like lights, bags, any accessories, if you're able to take it off easily, a passerby or a thief could also take it off easily. So take off any lights, your cycle computer, your bags, bring that with you. And then last but not least, lock your bike even if it's inside your garage, a storage unit, your apartment, your dorm. If you have any concern about someone being able to access it, lock it up even if it's inside. Better safe than sorry. So we talked about choosing a bike. We talked about preparing yourself with your helmet. We talked about how to lock a bike and how to use lights. The last thing you want to prepare yourself for before you go out on the road is just making sure your bike is ready for each ride. Bikes over time, components can wear, tires can lose air. So this little thing here is called ABC Quick Check. It's a really quick way that you can check your bike over and make sure it's ready to do what you need it to when you're out on the road. Each letter stands for something. So A stands for air. Similar to birthday balloons, bicycle tires will lose air over time, unlike car tires, which tend to retain PSI a lot longer. You can lose up to 1 to 2 to 3 PSI, pounds per square inch of air per day. So I try to check my tires and pump them once a week, once every other week. And especially if your bike has been sitting for a long time, checking your air and making sure it's pumped up is really important. If you're unsure how much air to put in, pretty much every bike tire is going to have a little label on the tire. It might be stamped, could be printed. Look on the side of your tire for a range or a maximum PSI. So a range, for example, would be something like 45 to 65 PSI. That gives you the low and the high limits. Some tires might only say maximum 100 PSI. So you know not to exceed that. A good tip, when you pump it up, using a pressure gauge to the PSI that you want it at, take a second to squeeze the tire and familiarize yourself by feel of how it feels when it's at the proper PSI. Totally fine to put a pump on with a pressure gauge and check pressure that way, but a great way to save time is to know by squeezing the tire how stiff or soft it should be. So that's A. B is brakes. So we want our tires to be aired up and working. We also want our brakes to work. When we're going downhill, coming to an intersection, we want to make sure that we can rely on our brakes to slow us down safely. So the way we check this is you squeeze your brake levers one at a time, squeeze the front brake, rock the bike back and forth, and just check and make sure that the brake is actually locking up your wheel and providing that stopping power. Then let go of that one and check the rear. So check both brakes, make sure they work. That's B. And then C could stand for chain. It says on here chain. It can also stand for crankset, chain rings, your rear cluster. The main point of this part of the ABC Quick Check is to spin the pedals, make sure that the chain is working, make sure that when you move the pedals, your back wheel is turning, just making sure that your whole drivetrain is working. If in doubt or it seems like something's off, take it to a bike shop or hop on YouTube University and watch a few videos on how you can check it, how to lube your chain, how to get it back working if needed. And then last, quick. Quick stands for quick release. So if your wheel doesn't have those hub locks, doesn't have those skewer locks we talked about, just make sure that your quick release is closed and that your wheel is tight, doesn't feel like it's loose. The last thing you want when you're riding is for your wheel to potentially come off or be loose enough that it can cause a crash. So just make sure that's good. And then ABC quick check, the last word, check. If you're heading out the door, like, the first half block that I'm riding when I leave my home, I'm not listening to a podcast, not playing music, not thinking about work yet. I'm just tuning in with my bike and making sure as I pedal, things feel right. Really good to familiarize yourself with your bike so that if something is off, you're able to catch it and get it taken care of and addressed. So with our body ready and our bike ready, let's talk about biking in San Francisco and beyond. We like to start with this slide to let people know same rights, same rules, and same responsibilities. So riding a bicycle or driving a bicycle is more or less the same in the eyes of California Vehicle Code as driving a car. In both instances, you are the driver driving a vehicle. So same rights, same rules, same responsibilities. So the law says a person riding a bicycle has all the rights and is subject to all the provisions applicable to the driver of a vehicle. Some other vehicle codes that are important to know, I'm just going to run through these quickly. If you want to learn more, these are on our website in the resources tab. Pedestrians always have the right of way in the crosswalk or not. You're required to yield. Stop behind the crosswalk, don't stop in it. Leave the crosswalk free and clear for the pedestrians using it. Stay on the streets. If you're over 13 years old, you should be on the street, not the sidewalk. Go with the flow. So always be going with traffic, never against it. If it's a one-way street, try not to ride against it. If you're late for class and you have to go up a one-way street, hop off the bike, get on the sidewalk, be a pedestrian, walk your bike. Mind signs and stoplights. So stop at stop signs, obey red lights. If you're riding at night, use lights like we talked about. This one's interesting and good to know. So you're able to leave the bike lane and take the lane if it's safer. We'll talk more about this when we talk about how to ride with traffic and in intersections. But just because there's a bike lane doesn't mean that you can only ride in the bike lane. So you are legally allowed to ride outside of bicycle lanes if it's safer or if there's a reason why it's a better choice in that instance. And again, we'll talk more about that. Be a friend to neighbor with disabilities. Paratransit carriers, including taxis, are allowed to park as close to the curb as possible, and that means parking in a bike lane, so they're allowed to be there. And then keep an ear clear. So legally, you're only supposed to ride with one headphone. I see people all the time not following this rule, and to each their own, but this is part of the California Vehicle Code because you do want to keep one ear open so you can hear traffic and hear what's going on around you. So, definitely encourage everyone, if you're going to ride with music or some sort of podcast, only do it in one ear so you can still be a safe user and sharer of the road. And again, these rules are all on the SF Bike website in the resources tab if you want to review them. So part of riding in the city is riding predictably. We are sharing the road with other road users. And a big part of doing that safely is riding in a manner that other road users will know where you're going to ride next, where you're going to be. So the first thing of riding predictably is riding in a straight line. We do have the bike lane. The bike lanes, most bike lanes are 4 to 7 feet wide. Can be fun sometimes to, kind of move back and forth, but really riding in the straight line allows any cyclist behind you, any motor vehicle behind you, scooters, that kind of thing. If you are holding your line, staying in your lane, they're going to know that you're going to stay there, not swerve into their lane, that kind of thing. Same with cars. And this is also really important when we are riding next to parked cars alongside of a road. I know from experience and talking also to other cyclists, it can feel safe for a moment when you're riding next to traffic and there's parked cars. When there's a gap between parked cars, it might seem like you're a little bit safer if you move over into that gap. I get it. You're moving away from the cars next to you. But what can happen is then when you get to the next parked car, you have to swerve back out into that lane of traffic. So holding your line, as you can see this cyclist doing on the left, is the best way to ride predictably, and then cars that are wanting to pass you aren't going to try to zoom past you while you're in this small gap, and then you might swerve out. So again, riding in that straight line, riding predictably, really important for sharing the road and being a safe user. Same thing here, this is part of predictability is you being able to predict what other road users are doing and signaling and communicating to those in your lane of travel what you're doing. So this image on the left, we see a cyclist. As you're riding, practicing being able to turn over your shoulder and scan the road briefly to see where other road users are. Really important for riding safely. And just as important, communicating to other road users what your intentions are going to be. So we see here there's a left turn. You take your left arm, hold it out. Definitely recommend holding your hand really out there. Make it really clear where you're signaling. If you do it too low or too close to your body, they might not see. So really put your hand out there and make that signal loud and clear. We also have a stopping. So others behind you, you can let them know that you're coming to a stop. And then right turn, we have two options. When I was in driver's ed, they said right turn should be taking your left hand and putting it up. They teach you that when you're driving because if you're in a car in the driver's seat, you really can't reach over with your right arm. So knowing that one is good. If you're on a bike though, not in a car, using your right arm and holding that out to signal is also completely valid. And with any of these signaling maneuvers, practicing on your own when you're away from other road users is a great thing to do. Find a parking lot, find a quiet street in your neighborhood, and practice taking your hands off the bar, signaling, and staying in control. If you're so just to revisit, taking lane, it's something that you're legally allowed to do. You can move out of the bike lane into the lane when it's necessary to avoid certain conditions and hazards in the road. Here's an example of what that looks like. And then if anyone's mic is on, if you can mute them. So here's what it looks like to take the lane. So this cyclist is riding on a street. It's wider than an average street, but there's no specific bike infrastructure. There's no bike lane. So taking the lane looks like riding out in traffic like you would if you're a car, and that requires any other road users, especially motor vehicles, to treat you just like they would another car. So being able to take the lane allows them to only pass you when it's safe and when they can get around you and there's an opening. Just like they would if it's another vehicle. So taking the lane is a good maneuver to know. And I'll just say, if some of these things we're talking about today in this class, if you want to practice them, but maybe you're unsure of where to do it or how to do it, it might be a little intimidating. The Bike Coalition has a lot of great on-bike classes where you can come out and practice these moves in a safe environment with experienced expert instructors. So we'll share some info at the end of this presentation about classes. If you want to up your knowledge, work on your confidence to do these things and commute by bike, get around by bike, consider taking a class. So we'll quickly go over left and right hand turns, ways to navigate an intersection. Starting with left hand turns, we'll talk about a vehicular turn, a box turn, and a pedestrian turn. So a vehicular turn is exactly what it sounds like. You are basically going to be navigating the intersection like you would if you're in an automobile. So that means looking, scanning when it's safe to move over, signaling and moving over into that turn lane, waiting for a space to turn. Just like a car, if you're a bicycle, you can wait in the middle of the intersection, turn when it's safe. And if there's multiple left turn lanes, use the one that serves your destination, which usually is going to be the rightmost lane. So that's one way to do it. On some intersections or busier streets, you might not want to have to cross multiple lanes of traffic. So doing what's called a box turn is a really great way to cross those intersections. So here we see the rider is coming up from the bottom of our screen. They want to turn left. What they're going to do is continue forward, move to the left, and wait either in front of or behind the crosswalk, and then continue forward when it's safe. So we'll see the cyclist moving into the other lane of traffic. Here they're waiting behind the crosswalk. You can also wait in front of it in some situations. And then you would continue forward when you have the signal to do so. Some streets and intersections will have these little green bike boxes, and they're designed specifically, especially at high volume turning intersections where a lot of cyclists might want to turn left. They'll actually have these green boxes. So imagine a cyclist is coming with you from at the top of our screen, coming at us. You ride straight into this bike box, put your brakes on, turn your bike, and then wait to move forward when it's safe. And then last is making a pedestrian turn. So this is exactly like it sounds. If there's ever an intersection or a situation where you're like, you know what, I just don't feel like dealing with crossing all of this traffic, pull over to the sidewalk, get off your bike safely, dismount, walk your bike across whatever crosswalks you need to safely get across the street. And then when you get to your lane of travel where you want to continue, get back on your bike, keep riding. So 3 great ways to make a left-hand turn. Right-hand turns are a bit easier because we're we're going forward and we're making a right-hand turn. We don't have to cross oncoming traffic. But in a lot of intersections where you can make a right-hand turn or continue forward, if there is a bike lane, that solid line of the bike lane will usually turn into a dashed lane. And just like it is for cars on the street, when they're driving, when there's a dashed lane, that means that cars are legally allowed to move over so that they can make that turn from the rightmost side next to the curb. There's lots of situations where this image on the left that says wrong might happen. For instance, when I was biking to work today, there was an intersection where there were about 10 of us cyclists waiting to cross the street. We were all lined up. And so in that situation, it's not really conducive or realistic for the car to move all the way to the right. But sometimes you might be coming and you'll see a car move over into the bike lane through those dotted lines. It is a legal move. And in that case, if you can pass on the left as much as possible, that's safe. It allows that car to turn from the curb lane. Couple just overview of common hazards when you're on the road, looking out for things on the road and other road users that might present some sort of threat or hazard is an important part of scanning and being aware on the road. Things like train tracks, metal grates, sewer covers, even the paint of crosswalks. We live in a city that gets a lot of precipitation from fog, from rain. Precipitation can turn these things into more dangerous hazards. Metal grates you can slide on, sewer covers can be slippery, train tracks are slippery and dangerous whether they're dry or not. So cross train tracks as perpendicular as possible, and then just be aware metal grates, sewer covers, paint on the road can get slippery. Look out for pedestrians, look out for other cyclists, look out for potholes. We talked about the door zone, we'll talk about it more. Stay out of the door zone, and don't get too close to trucks, don't get too close to buses, avoid those blind spots. So here's kind of a good way to visualize what a door zone is. So we see here there's a car parked next to the curb, and then there's no bike lane here. We see the sharrow down here below the cyclist. Again, riding through the middle of that sharrow allows you to stay 3 to 5 feet clear of the door zone, so that if you're riding and a driver doesn't look before they open the door, staying 3 to 5 feet away from the car is how you avoid the door zone. Like we said here, when you're crossing train tracks, try to cross as perpendicular as possible. Keeping your feet in a neutral position at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock will help you stay balanced. And then maintaining a constant speed. So you don't want to slam your brakes on as you cross train tracks. You don't want to try to pedal really hard. Just maintain the speed you're at. Stay neutral, stay balanced, and cross as perpendicular or a 90-degree angle as possible. Avoid blind spots, like we said. So there's 3 different types of blind spots. There's blind spots for each of the side view mirrors and then directly behind a big vehicle. So avoid those, or sorry, 4. Avoid those as much as possible. Don't get too close behind or in front of trucks or buses. And then if you are driving, something we can all practice to help keep the door zone as safe as possible is what's called the Dutch reach. So we see here on the left, this driver is using their left hand to open the door. It's not really a great way to keep your eye on who's coming up behind you, be it a cyclist or a scooter, a skateboarder, you name it. So what you can do is take your right hand, reach across your body to open that car door, and that allows your head in a really natural position to look behind you as you're opening the door. So a way that we can all keep streets, bike lanes, and door zones safer for everyone is using our right hand to open that car door. Cool, so we're going to talk a little bit about choosing a route and multimodal transportation to kind of round out this presentation. I grew up in a small town and I moved to a big city when I was in my early 20s. I had never ridden with traffic. I'd never had to figure out how to get across a big city. It can be kind of daunting. The best thing you can do is ask somebody who does it regularly, a neighbor, a coworker, a co-student, a professor. If you know someone specifically, or just asking around, people who can give you first-person experiential advice is always a great place to start. So ask your classmate, hey man, do you bike? Do you bike to class? Like, where do you come from? What's a good bike route? That's a great place to start. San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, for members, we offer a biking and walking guide. It's a great map to help you get across the city. We'll talk a little bit more about using a trip planner like Google Maps here in a moment. And then no matter how you educate yourself on how to choose a route or how you design that route, if you're having to bike to class, if you're having to bike to work, if you have an internship, practice your commute before you have to do it. What I mean by that is, let's say you get a job for the summer and you're like, cool, I start on this date at 8 in the morning. You probably should prepare your route, not at 7 in the morning that same morning. Do it the weekend before, the week before. Practice riding that route when you're not in a rush, trying to be on time, so that when it comes time to make that commute, get to class, get to your job, you're not worried about making, the exact turn at the right place or things like that. So practice. That'll help make you more confident and ready to do it when you're actually relying on the bicycle to get to that location. Google Maps is your friend. So when I first started commuting in big cities back in 2007, we didn't really have Google Maps. I had to use different ways to get around and memorize it or practice it. Google Maps has a really handy feature of layers down in the bottom of the map. So in this photo, you can see that there's different types of layers you can actually put over the map. You can find this icon in the bottom left of your Google Maps map. It's a feature. You just click on layers and you can see here that one of those options, we have satellite, terrain, traffic, transit, and biking. And so the biking feature will give you great options on how to get around on specific bike routes or bike-friendly streets. For example, here we go. So we're looking at one of the UCSF campuses. This is Parnassus. Looking at it on these streets, we can see that there's on 6th Avenue over here, there's a solid green line. Down here, our legend shows you that a solid green line is a dedicated bike lane. So 6th Avenue has specific bike lanes that are dedicated for bikes. We also see bicycle-friendly roads. Those are the dots, and then we see dashes that are dirt and unpaved trails. Another example here, we have UCSF Mission Bay. As you can see, there's a lot of solid green streets nearby. So there's a decent amount of streets that have bike lanes on them. There's lots of little dotted ones. Those are bicycle-friendly streets. We also have bike paths over here. And then again, this is UCSF Mount Zion, similar example. We see a lot of green infrastructure on these maps. And these are very zoomed out photos. Obviously, you can zoom in to see more closely, and then you can use the directions feature to specifically take directions for getting there by bike. So using Google Maps and the layers feature is a great way to kind of visualize and plan your route, and then obviously you want to go practice. Another great way, this is great if you're biking the whole way there, from your front door to the school, to your job. You can also do multimodal transportation. So you can use your bicycle and public transportation. What that looks like is you can BART. So you can put your bike on BART. A couple of things to note: you're not supposed to go on the first car. You're also not supposed to be on the first 3 cars during rush hour. So during those busier times, saving those front cars for people that are on foot is the requirement. But it's a great way to get across the bay and get around town. Muni buses have bike racks. Great way to get around is to use your bike and a bus. Typically, if you're using a bus rack on a bike, make eye contact with the driver. Let them know that you're gonna, put your bike on the rack. They usually will set a specific brake for you to do that. So put your bike on the rack. You can see here, this woman has her bike on here. There'll be one arm with a hook on it. That's for your front wheel. So if you're unsure and you're coming up to the rack, look for that arm, put your front wheel in the slot closest to that arm. The arm is spring loaded, so pull it, go up and over your tire, and then let it secure your tire. I always grab the bike and give it a little wiggle, make sure it's safe and stable. Great way to get around. Same thing when you're leaving the bus. Tell the driver as you're exiting, I need to get my bike. That lets them know to set that brake to wait for you, and then get your bike off the rack. Definitely don't forget your bike. I have a coworker, another instructor. She advocates for removing your helmet and holding it. And that's a really good way to remind yourself, hey, I have a helmet. That means I have a bike. So don't forget your bike on the bus. And then next we have Caltrain, another great way to get around, a very common way for people that live further outside of the city to get here. You'll see lots of bike commuters coming into the city and leaving. A lot of the newer trains don't actually have these steps anymore. You can just walk right on, and there'll be little tags you can put on your bike to let other users know where you're getting off and getting on. And last but not least, ferries, another great way to get around. They have racks for most size bikes. I will say some of the newer cargo bikes that have really big tires, they don't fit in all the racks. But the ferries have a really great informational page on what kinds of bikes are allowed, which ones are not. So if you're considering taking the ferry, check it out and make sure that your bike is supported and allowed on the ferry. Some e-bikes and e-motos are not allowed. So do the research. If you're unsure, just double check. And then last but not least, maybe you don't have a bike, maybe you don't have a place to store one. If you want to still get around, be multimodal, not have to drive, consider looking into a bike and scooter share program, such as Bay Wheels or Lime scooters or Spin scooters. They all have apps. You just download the app, make an account and try it out. If you like it, consider getting a subscription. I have a Bay Wheels subscription and I use it every now and then when I don't feel like using my personal bike. Subscriptions can save you a lot of money. So, maybe you want to take Muni partway there, and then you want to hop on a Bay Wheels bike to get to class. Great way to kind of mix two different modes of transportation to get there. Then last but not least, like I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of great classes, both in classroom and on bike, for you to practice these skills, up your knowledge. This is kind of an overview of different classes we offer. Stay up to date, go to our webpage, sfbike.org, go to our events page. And last but not least, if you appreciated this class or if you want to learn more, consider joining the coalition as a member. Only $45 a year. If you take one of our classes, there's an option to get a $15 membership. Great benefits come with membership, so check it out. And that, Tyler, is the extent of the class. Thanks for joining, and I'll kick it back over.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was excellent. I think we still have a bunch of people on the call, and so I do want to raise a couple of questions that were asked earlier, so we can record them and we'll send that out to everyone. John Hamiga, who's part of UCSF Bikes, I think he might have dropped off the call, but he was wondering about other resources for how to discover more about how UCSF supports biking. And I have put it in the chat, but I highly recommend that you visit our Commute Solutions biking tab. That's where we host all our information about all the things we do to support biking. So for example, you can see information about all the upcoming Bike Month activities. You can learn how to get a free bike permit, which gives you access to secure on-campus parking. You can find out where all those secure locations are located. You can find bike purchase discounts, videos on taking your bike on the bus, and more. So I put that link in the chat, but I highly recommend you check it out. UCSF Bikes is also a registered campus organization, and they host a lot of fun events, and that's a great way to get started. Another question that came in on the chat was, how do you build your confidence riding in traffic if you're new to cycling and maybe a little hesitant to get out there and mix it up in traffic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a couple different thoughts and tips. Number one is practice. Finding streets that are lower volume of traffic, slower speeds, is a good way to practice riding alongside traffic without kind of the stress of having all these cars going past you. So using that Google Maps feature, finding those bike-friendly routes is a good way to start. And then, like I was saying earlier, consider taking one of our on-bike classes, the Smart City Cycling series, so Smart City Cycling 1, 2, and 3. 1 is in a classroom, and then 2 and 3 are on the road. Those are great ways to learn these maneuvers and practice. Smart City Cycling 2 is in a car-free environment, and number 3, we go on the road as a group with experienced leaders to practice these skills. And then just to circle back, I think practicing these skills can help you build the confidence, and then when you feel ready, I think trying it out and going for it, is a great way to do it.
Excellent. Thank you. That's it. That's really helpful. And I think also UCSF Bikes in Bike Month, every Thursday in May is holding bike buses or leading bike buses. And that's a way to try to get a group of people riding at the same time. I just put that link in the chat to those events. So they have two gathering areas in the city. So there's a common meeting time, and then you can ride in a group. That can also be a great way to sort of build confidence when you're riding with others, both to sort of share knowledge peer to peer, but also that safety in numbers effect. You'll be more visible. You'll be taking up more space. So again, I just want to share for anyone on there. If you can still see my slides, here's all the activities we have coming up in Bike Month. So again, those bike buses every Thursday. May 14th is Bike to Wherever Day. SF Bike Coalition will be having an Energizer station here at Mission Bay from 7:30, that should be a.m. to 9:30 a.m. We'll be handing out a bunch of swag, so we hope to see you then. We will also be distributing information and swag and talking about bikes at UCSF Llama Day. And then again, May 28th, SF Bike Coalition is returning for a focus class on Bay Wheels, specifically your UCSF commute powered by Bay Wheels. So we're very excited with that, about that. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. Pardon again for the technical disruption, but we hope to see you again in May and have a happy, wonderful Bike Month. Bye, everyone.